guys, Andrew here from East Bay Strength and Conditioning. I'm going to show you guys the difference between the hinge or a deadlift pattern and a squat pattern. So working within that hinge, we have a typically called a straight leg deadlift, or a straight leg RDL is another word for it. So there's a traditional deadlift, we get a little more flexion at the knee, and then the RDL pattern is a little less flexion at the knee. So we'll demonstrate those two patterns so you can see the difference, as well as demonstrating what we're going to do today is a goblet squat or a front squat, and you'll be able to see how there's just a lot more flexion at the knee pattern for the squat. Spine is a little bit more upright, so there's less of a hip drive. All right, so initially we're going to start with the traditional straight leg deadlift, which is going to be also considered an RDL or Romanian deadlift. So with that pattern, we're going to go, feet are typically a little bit more narrow, so we're going to stay just hip width apart, or maybe even just inside, kind of right under our hips here. And side profile is easiest to view. We want to make sure that our torso is tall, our chest is a little bit up, so we're maintaining that natural curve in our lower back, and we're engaging the core. So from that position, you could be holding dumbbell, could be holding a straight bar. We like to teach people with something lightweight so they can practice the pattern. But we're going to lead with our hip drive going backwards, maintaining that neutral curve in our spine, and our head is back. So the tendency is going to be to go back and drive our chin forward. So we just got an imaginary tennis ball under the chin, head is tucked back. So we have that natural alignment. So we're sliding this bar right down our thighs as we drive our tailbone back, staying nice and tall. We get to just past the knees. Some people are very flexible, can keep going down. Once you start to lose that natural curve in your back, you get to this position, you're putting your back in a position to get hurt. So we got to make sure that we drive our tailbone back, shift our weight slightly onto our heels as we push back and down. So you should still feel some weight, kind of mid-foot, big toe should still be planted, but you clearly feel that your hips have driven backwards. You might even get a little bit of a stretch coming through this back side. When we come back up, we're leading with our shoulders, pulling our hip back through. So we're engaging the glutes and hamstrings, lower back to help pull ourselves up. So the tendency is to get into what I call turtle shell. As you go down, you start going here, jutting your head out, you end up getting what looks like a turtle shell on your back. So you're going to get those shoulders wide, a little subtle activation, get tall, keeping that natural curvature, so when you go back, we avoid that turtle shell posture. Some people may only be able to get down this far, kind of to the tops of their knees, maintaining spinal alignment. If you find it's good to kind of look at a mirror on the side of you or have somebody watch you to see what happens in that position. So with the traditional deadlift, coming off of the floor, we're just going to end up, instead of getting all that flexion happening at the hip, we're going to start to bring that knee as we start to drop. We're kind of exhausting that range that we have, so we have to drop back, grab whatever the object is, whether it's a bar, kettlebell, or a weight, then we'll be able to come back down. But with this posture, you can see the chest is still out, the back's still aligned, so even though we're dropping down, that's the RDL pattern, coming back up, deadlift pattern, we're dropping back and down, but we're still maintaining that position, that posture, head is still back, shoulders are broad, popping back out of that, all right? Key thing to do is just make sure as you're dropping down in either of these positions that our knees are not caving in. So we're keeping in line over the laces as we drop back down. Squatting pattern, we're going to hold this out just in front of us, going to perform a goblet squat. So we're just going to go just outside the hips. Some people will be a little more narrow, some people will be a little bit wider. There's a couple different variations on that, but traditionally what we do is going to be just outside the hips, toes slightly turned out. So we're holding this about head or basketball size off of our body. From that position, it works very well to sit down on your first rep. So we're shifting backwards with our entire torso. We're going to touch, and then we're going to pop back up. So you can see there's not going to be as much flexion. We're not dropping down in here like this to touch, and then dropping back down. We're going to end up overloading that back a little bit too much. So if we were to step out and continue that pattern down to a lower level, we're holding here. We're just dropping down, trying to keep that neutral spine as we drop back down, try not to have that tuck under and overloading the back. So just go as far as your posture lets you go. Touch. If you're dropping down to something, if not, I'm going to try and get these elbows inside the thighs as we drop down. But as you can see, the posture of the spine ends up being a lot more upright. There's a lot more flexion going on at the knee, as opposed to with our deadlift, we're dropping down and back. So now we're getting a big flexion here at the hip, a lot less flexion going on here, putting that pressure to the back side of the torso, as opposed to with the squat, we drop down, those muscles are all still working, but there's a lot more going on here with the quads. All right, so give those patterns a shot, see how they feel. Always make sure that you're maintaining a neutral spine throughout either movement. Only work within the ranges that your body is capable of maintaining that neutral spine. All right, save yourself a lot of back pain. You'll start to get stronger faster, and you'll eventually improve your mobility as you work through those patterns.